This screencast talks you through some aspects of third letter of John that might help you in understanding it and reading it a little bit more carefully. We need to think about vocab, grammatical structures, and some other issues that link it to the other texts you've read and that may help you in trying to read it. First of all, vocab that's given to you that might be vaguely helpful. You get a strange verb here. Eu odustai, eu odutai. This is eu and hodos, giving you farewell. In the same kind of the way you might explain in English, something's doing well. Hygiene is linked to the English word hygiene, and it means to be healthy. You then get some more unusual words further along. Propempsas. You know pempo means send, and this is send before or send ahead. Axios is glossed in the EBS because it's not that common. Worthily. You can tell it's an adverb from the os, and you might know the adjective axios meaning worthy. Ethnicone, obviously giving us the ethnic word, i.e. Gentile, or in this context glossed as unbeliever perhaps. Hypolambanone. This is definitely a text where compound verbs are worth paying attention to. You know this means take. The two together means support. A sun ergos, more compounds. Sun with, erg is work, so this is a co-worker. Philoproteon, again, it's a compound word that you may well be able to unpick yourselves. Lover of protos, of being first. So a philoproteon is someone who loves being first. Diotrephes is here a name, so it's not glossed, but Diotrephes also splits down in case you're interested, because onomastics is an important topic, and this is born of God, or nurtured of God, or something like that. Epidechetai is glossed, another compound verb that you might want to pay attention to, and indeed it means pay attention, with the root dechomai meaning receive underneath it. Hypomneso comes from the verb hypomimnesko. Anything with that mne root in it is likely to have something to do with remembering, hence the English word mnemonic. So this is to do with remembering and being reminded of things. It's also notable because it's got an iota subscript in the verb. So it's one of those words where you have to pay attention to the iota subscript that's there in the main verb. And it has that sk in it that tells you it's a process verb. Fluorone means slander. Worth learning, one of those mean words that crops up fairly frequently. Arkumenos comes from a verb archeo, he made passive, meaning to be content. You get epidechetai repeated. Kolue, glossed here, worth paying attention to because it's easily confusable with other verbs. It means I hinder or prevent. You then get mimu at the beginning of verse 11, and that's mimeomai, which gives us words like mimesis, mimetic, all the rest of that. So you've got something that's to do with pretense or imitation. Agathopoion and cacopoion are both glossed in the UBS. Hopefully you can see that both of those are again compounds. This text is very good at compounds. You've got agathos and kakos plus poion, so you've got do good and do bad. Once you've done that, you should be heading towards being able to make good sense of this text. You then get a repeated unusual word in melanos, which you had in the previous text, melas, black. Here used as a neuter noun, meaning ink. But this time this section is extended, and the black meaning ink is added to, because a kalamos is a reed, and therefore a pen. So the black as ink is added to, and you get the full phrase. So that's the vocab. It's worth also thinking about some of the grammatical features in this. First of all, the relative pronouns. You've got a lot of them in this text that you might want to keep an eye on as a way of hooking this text together. Hon, hoi, notice the accent there. Ho, hoos. Further down, there's a ha. These are all relative pronouns, giving you little relative clauses. So where do these clauses start and finish, and how can that help you construct things? Keep an eye on these, and it might help you to be able to structure your sentence when you're trying to work it out. Ta'erga ha clearly links together as well, so that's at least a nice easy one to add together. Hapoye. You've got fewer of the hotties than you've had in previous texts, so that kind of construction is not used anywhere near as much. There is in fact only the one, I think, at the end of verse 12. And this time you can see you've got it after oidas, and therefore it's going to be you note that. It's explaining the knowledge. It's going to be some kind of indirect statement. What you've got still in this text, however, is a fair few subjunctive clauses. So where are your subjunctives in this text that you might want to pay attention to? Ean and ergase, indefinite, conditional. Hinna, ginormatha, a purpose clause. Ean, elthor, another indefinite conditional. You've then also got a fair few of those participles as nouns. You've got ho philoproteouon, ho agathopoion, ho kakapoion. Those are the obvious nominative ones. But you do have a few more, like tous voluminous, that you might want to pay attention to. Going back to vocab quickly, you've also got lian, back up in verse 3, that you might want to recall from the previous version was your excess or very much. And then it's linking in with another phrase worth paying attention to as a genitive absolute. So you can break down this text quite easily into its clause. It's worth looking at things like word order, even things as little as the Emma, my children, equals the children, the, my children. So look at the word order of where those possessive adjectives go in, because you might expect mu, and often the genitive pronoun is used there, the children of me, but sometimes the possessive adjective is used, and it's worth keeping an eye on that because it's a little bit less common. Another vocab term worth keeping an eye on is enorpion. 94 times New Testament, not at all in many classical authors like Sophocles. It has something to do with your ops, being in front of someone, in the front of the face of someone. And it's an interesting word often used to express being in the presence of God, reflecting the Old Testament. Here it's used with reference to the church, so it's interesting to see how that has moved on. Rhetorically, you've also got a fair few features that you might want to keep an eye on. We start both verse 5 and verse 11 with your vocative address. You've still got those little phrases just trying to structure the narrative, like dear tutor, explaining how things go on. So even in a short text like this, you've got an awful lot of rhetorical things. from the salutation of the fragment at the very start onwards. The last thing I might want to add at this point, if you're thinking about how the text is structured, is also to take an eye back at Mimu and notice its tenses. Think about how tenses work in this text. You've had plenty of perfects. If you go through this text, there are several. And here you've actually got an imperative in the present. Imitating someone is therefore clearly a continuous action. And looking at how knowledge in this text goes from ginosko to oida, and some sense of the perfect going on there, to other perfects that occur, to the very present ongoing sense of imitation as a process, might be something worth thinking about, but I don't want to over-egg it too much.